You have paper hang with you?
Yes, please.
My name's Ramey Zmitsky. Many of you may know my house. I'm the house with the Targus Libraries on North Mountain View Drive. And I'm going to talk to you today about everything I've learned in the last couple months, which is a lot. So, next slide, please. So, if you don't know the history of Normal Heights, it was back at the turn of the 19th century, the University Heights Syndicate created Normal Heights, and we put a map up over on the wall there. It's the original 1906 map, where they laid out our entire community, basically from Madison to where the two freeways are today. And each area that's surrounded by streets, they had a different block, and within those blocks were all of the lots. And you'll see if you look at the map, some of the street names have changed, but the streets really remain the same. There are a couple that have been added on the canyons and things like that, but for the most part, that's what we have, and that's who we've been. So then, if you can go to the next one, please. So how they determined this gets to the crux of the problem. They basically found 4 points. They found those 4 points, they measured it. They gave those measurements to the cartographer, who went back to his office, sat in an office, and came up with that plan. There was no survey done at the time. That's just all his map. So if you take that map, and I can tell you because I've done it, take that map and take the grid lines and create a grid and overlay that grid onto a satellite map that you can get today from Google Earth or whatever you want to do, it lines up. The streets line up, the alleys line up, the lots line up, except for a lot of the canyon lots have been split up, and some of the rectangle lots have been split up, but for the most part, that's what you got. And this is the same map. It's better if you look over there, a lot more detail.
I'll go ahead and zoom in a little for those that are on the Zoom.
Yeah.
So I think we are in, this is Adams, but I guess we're okay, so we're sitting here. Okay.
And if you didn't see it on the previous slide, that was named after the president of the syndicate that created this community. The next one. So what I'd like the people at home to do is to right now, while you're listening to me, go to either Zillow.com or GoogleMaps.com, get into our neighborhood and start drilling down, zooming in until you start seeing lot lines. And take a look at those while I'm talking to you. So my history is that we moved here in 1989. Bought the plot over there, and we immediately met our neighbors who let themselves be known. On the west side was Victoria, and she had been there for decades, and she told us right where our property line was. And then Mrs. Johnson, and I don't know if any of you really remember Mrs. Johnson, but of course she told us exactly what she thought about where the property lines were. And we understood them to be what they were. Our deed only says lot 30 and block 12 of Normal Heights in the city of San Diego, county of San Diego, state of California, according to the map thereof of 985, which is that map over there, filled in with the office, filed in the office with the county recorder on May 9th, 1906. That's all it says. There were no surveys, no latitudes, no longitudes, no nothing. This was just strictly map, and that's what we bought on our deed. So next, please. So in the 1990s, the city replaced our curbing. You'll see it right there. And you'll see this ramp down right here. We were told by the people that put this curb in, that ramp down to the old curb was the property line. So property line right there. So that's what we were told, and the next one. So after that, in 2003, they replaced the sidewalk here. They also said, when these guys put in the sidewalk, they said, they're taking it to the property line, and you might be able to see right there is the curb. They line up. You see our property going up here. Now, when they put in the sidewalk, they didn't retain the monument that was there. And the monument is that little lead pin you see in sidewalks and streets that are supposed to denote where things are supposed to be. They didn't retain it. They took it out when they took out the sidewalk. They didn't immediately put it back in. A guy came a couple days later and did that. So when he came and put it back in, we immediately noticed that pin wasn't in the same place. We were told, close enough, don't worry about it. Well, that's why I'm here today. So I found out today, and thank you very much for your help. I did talk to somebody from DSD today, or from engineering. And I found out the gentleman's name. He walked me through the process of how he did the math. He found 2 points, which I don't know how you can do it with 2 points, but he did it with 2 points, found the math, and that's how he determined where this is going. But you can see there's that drop down. There's the new sidewalk versus the old sidewalk. That says 8.5 inches. That's not close enough in my book, but it is what it is. So next, please. So then later on, they replaced the sidewalk in front of Ken and Debbie's. That's 3227. That is Victoria was the original owner. She sold it to Ken and Debbie, and they replaced the sidewalk. They didn't replace the monument in that one. They took it out, didn't preserve it, didn't put it back. So then in June of 2014, because the fence between our property and Victoria's original property was falling down, we had the fence replaced. If you remember what June was like back in the days before we got rain here in San Diego, you didn't dig new holes in San Diego in June. So we used the exact same holes, the exact same line. It was just a replacement of the fence. So, next please. Now we're going to city history. What I found out through doing research and going down many rabbit holes is this city has had a lot of problems with what we have experienced. They were not preserving the monuments. They were not putting the monuments back where they belong. This city engineer, Ray Hall, was even put on notice by the state. And his response was, I don't work for the state, I work for the city. So he didn't care to follow the state law, which would explain why monuments were not preserved and not put back where they belong. He also made the comment, should be okay that a foot or two was acceptable tolerance. Okay, I would love to learn a surveyor who thinks that a foot or two is acceptable tolerance. Apparently this guy was, and he was in charge. Because of that comment and many other comments, our state attorney general at the time started threatening him. Even got to the point where they said, you aren't going to do any projects until you get your act together. So their response to that was to once again put somebody in charge who shouldn't have been in charge. He had no business being in that role, but they put him in the role. The state called him on it. They had to take him out. So then, in October 2012, the Loyola Land Surveyors accused the city of San Diego of continuing to not preserve monuments. One surveyor basically was a fortune teller and said the property owners are hung out to dry. Yeah, tell me about it. Now, Greg Hopkins acknowledged that they weren't doing it correctly. But he'd only been in the position a month, so he had a lot to learn, I guess. But he said it's not intentional, so all's okay. In May of 2013, it was so bad, a grand jury put a report out there saying it's still bad. You have a history of not doing your jobs properly. You have a history of not following the state law, and you're still doing it. It's getting better, but you're still doing it. So I encourage, next one, please. There's the links for the grand jury. I encourage everybody to go out and take a look at the grand jury report. So it basically, we saw years of what was happening. We have documentation that a grand jury agreed of what was happening. Now let's get into what it created. So in 1993, basically was when GPS really went live. Now, GPS, there was a conversion of some sort at some time from someone, and I can't get an answer as to how this actually happened, but our community over here got converted into GPS, which is now why you can go onto Google Maps and go onto Zillow, and you can see our community and see our lot lines. So this is a capture of, I know it's called Block 12, but I kind of feel like I want to call it District 12, so I'm going to call it District 12. And it's a capture of that district on the bigger map. So next one, please. What I did was I outlined over top of all of the grids. So I kind of enhanced them in a new layer. If you know Photoshop, you have the picture as one layer, and then you can do the lines as another layer, which led me to have just the lines. I then took that line and overlaid it onto what we know as a satellite map. It's hard to see here, but these match up. You see all these match up. Now, these over here have since been split up. These over here have since been split up. So it gets a little wonky over there, but the rectangles all match. And it's the same with the other blocks. If you take the lines from there, overlay it onto a physical map, you're going to get them to line up. This one, I like District 12 because it's got this alley here, and this bend here, and then it's got the swoop around. So I was able to really know exactly where this grid should be. So then you now see how it aligns to the history. We now have a picture of that. So let's look at what happens today. This is a newer community in San Diego. It might be hard to see, but you can see these lines. This is how communities should look. These lines are uniform. The houses on them are within their lines. Nobody's over. This guy's got a little corner issue over here. He's the exception, but for the most part, everybody's where they belong. Let's see what normal heights looks like. So, those of you at home probably could see this better, but there ain't nobody within their lines. Everybody is over. And in some cases, people are in the alley or the street. Paul, can you go back over to the left there? The other, yeah. And go down a little bit. So I'm going to see that top corner. So this one. Okay. This poor guy, I have no idea what's going on there. Is this now considered city land? Is his house, part of it, belong to the city? I have no idea. Nobody seems to have an answer for that. But you can clearly see that what we saw with the traditional map going to natural markers is now completely shifted. And you can see it in the next slide. Where,
Can I ask you a question? To see if I understand what you're saying. You're saying a few minutes ago, you showed that the lot lines, perfectly line up, the new GPS, everything.
no, sorry, the perfect lineup is the 1906 map.
Okay, aerial photograph.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
okay, you're not saying the lot lines match up with the people built over those lot lines, you're saying,
I'm gonna get to what happened here.
okay.
Yeah. So this is, I did it again where I overlaid the maps from the GPS, and I haven't really given a lot of consideration to these because they seemed a little exaggerated to me. I'll tell you, when I started calling around to property lawyers, this is what they pulled up. And they gasped when they saw this. They said, that's your entire neighborhood. I'm like, tell me about it. So I wasn't giving credence until the legal people started giving credence to this. The next one, please. So it's going to be really hard to see, but I basically did exactly the same thing. I overlaid what is the GPS lines and then put them into the satellite. You can see everybody is off. There's people's swimming pools that are now suspect. There's houses on other people's lots.
Are things generally shifted in one direction?
Uh-huh.
It looks like.
Yeah, no, they are. Wait, you'll see. I got this, man. I'm like totally into this research now. Okay, so if you go to the next one.
I'm having fun with this map.
I know, right? Even the alleys don't really line up. The streets don't line up. Again, this poor guy lost part of his house to the city. So then, the next one, and you put this online, right? So people,
Yes.
you guys can dive into it yourself.
All the presentations that we have at the NHCPG are posted on our website after the meeting.
Perfect. Okay, so next one, please. Now, it's not just District 12. You see, these are now on the street, or that's an alley. They're in the alley. These guys are in the alley. These guys are in the alley. You can't tell me that these houses are magically now in the alley and that can be correct. It can't be. These are all shifted. This is where the line is now, where you would expect the line to be along the street. And this line for the alley is in the middle of these structures. It's the entire community. So now we're stepping back into my situation. On May 7th, our lawyer got an email from the developer that bought the lot next to us. We had a lawyer because of multiple issues with the developer. All of a sudden on May 7th, they said, we did a survey today and you're over. Okay, well, we were home all day, you didn't do a survey. They actually showed up on May 8th and came up with the same answer. It's miraculous. So then on May 10th, 4:57 p.m. on a Friday, we got another email from their lawyer saying that if we didn't hand over that strip of land that they're saying we're over by 8 a.m. on Monday, they were going to sue us.
It's the fence that they claim is over the property.
It's the fence. They initially claimed 12 inches.
I have the same problem with my property.
Okay, so we'll get to that. Don't do anything. So next, so I'm gonna go back and show you. We are lot 30. It's got the measurements on it. It's got the location. I'm lucky. I have this alley right here. I know this property. So then we also went, my father spent a lot of time in the county getting these maps. This is another map that's really hard to see. It was really light. We are also lot 30 here. And this is what I found out today from the nice gentleman that talked to me for an hour and a half from the city. This is basically, he picked this marker here, which the way this heartbeat is here, it's denoting that the marker's on Copley, but that Copley's not there, because as many of you know, that would be closer to 33rd than Copley. Copley runs the other way. But that's what the little heartbeat means, is that somewhere else this happened. There's another marker up in the top that is also somewhere else, this one up here. He used those two, then did this fun little math thing here. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't used calculus since I left high school, so I was having a hard time following what he was saying. But he calculated where that marker was to be, where I showed you earlier when they replaced our sidewalk. He calculated it, and that's where he put it. So again, it wasn't really a lot survey at the time, it was a calculation from other points. I cannot find out how those other points came to be. The answer I got today was, well, you got a lot more research to do. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna start digging in. So then the next one. May 17th, they told us it was 12 inches. And that corresponded with the email from the lawyer. They came out and said that they wanted to get the lawyers out of it, and that maybe we can work out moving the fence 12 inches. They came back out on May 22nd, one played good cop, one played bad cop, and they said, maybe we can work out moving the fence 12 inches. May 28th, they texted me and told me it's 18 inches. They won't share the survey with me, so I don't know what the real thing is. But what I do know is that if you measure the developer lot, which is lot 31, from the historical boundary to the historical boundary, it's 50.15. If you measure if you measure the historical to historical, it's 50.15. If you measure the monument to monument, it's 50.15. Problem is they don't align. So let's go to the next one. That's 12 inches right there. That's what we have always known our property line to be. That's 12 inches to where the monument is. Right there. So I put the T-square down. This is their side. So this is their west side of the lot. And that's also 12 inches. So from where the traditional boundary was to where the pin is 12 inches. Next one. Why do I say what it was? That's the 100-year-old house that was on that lot. So if that pin is 12 inches from this gap right here, that 100-year-old house somehow miraculously moved.
Amazing.
Amazing. Stupendous. Okay. And you gotta love Google. They have all the receipts for you. Not just our two lots. This is the neighbor on the other side of the developer lot. I did the T-square again from where his post is. Guess what? 12 inches. Next to him, Leanne and Judy. Where their traditional line is, guess what? It's 12 inches. Next one. Sorry, that's okay. Next one, John's. Right there, traditional. 12 inches. Not just ours. So this is opposite. If you were standing with your back at my fence and looking across, where their fence is where our fence is. There's the pin, 12 inches different. So this parking lot is now on their property. And I walked the neighborhood. There are not a lot of pins in this neighborhood. The monuments have been lost, they've been covered, they never existed. I found some. Anytime I was looking to the left, the pins were off to your left. Anytime I was looking to the east, your pins were off to the right. You can't tell me that an entire neighborhood, I mean, we're a great neighborhood. We do a lot of things together. We didn't all shift our property.
Randy, what's being developed next to you?
No idea.
So the pins, monument markers
Uh-huh.
can be offset from your property line. And that's documented in the county assessors.
Right.
From that record.
What I'm
So
told
it
is
don't have to be in line directly to your property line. And that's particular to corner lots.
yes, that is absolutely correct. And what I was told is the one corner lot has that, which is why we couldn't get the one to our east to match up to anything. It was crazy. It was out there on its own because that's a corner pin.
Sorry.
It has the offset. These, I was told today by the city, these are property lines. These are not offsets. So I know when the developer had damaged our property, everybody just said, just get a lawyer, get a lawyer. Well, the problem is California follows the American rule, which means whether we win or lose, we are out the money. We can't recover that money. Estimates we've gotten is $75,000 to $150,000 for a case like ours. So the other thing we need to consider is precedent. If we give into the developer and move our fence 12 inches and give them 12 inches, what is that going to mean for all of the rest of you? Because if you look at the map, the entire community, everything in the community is shifted 12 inches east, southeast. It is very clear when you're overlooking the entire community, that's what happened, east, southeast. So if we give in, I'm afraid that somebody's gonna come and say, hey, they did it, you gotta do it. And I'm a little worried.
To make sure that I understand it right.
Uh-huh.
This map would be the direct property line where the houses are where they belong.
This,
The GPS lines that are going through people's houses.
well, I wanna clarify two things. This map, you overlay it to the terrain, everything lines up to anything, the terrain. So if you take a satellite picture over your house, they match up. It's all good. And it's not necessarily the GPS that's wrong. It's whoever set the first markers in normal heights that they're using to create the GPS.
Lost in translation.
Right, and I can't find, that's the part of the research I'm going to have to continue to do more rabbit holes to find out how those were placed.
So I have an issue with my neighbor. I've owned my house for about 17 years.
Mhm.
On the north side of Adams.
Uh-huh.
I have like abnormally large yard.
Okay.
And there's been an issue with the trees for months, for years.
Uh-huh.
And she slipped up one day and said, well, technically these are your trees. So I did some research.
Okay.
My fence would be 10 feet in there.
10 feet.
10 feet. I
Oh
have
my
it all
goodness.
on copy. But I know there's a law. Is that still present? There's like a law that you can't take your land back for a certain amount of years.
It's 5 years and it depends. So it has to be open where everybody agrees.
They're.
Well, no, not them in particular,
Oh,
but if you're talking about a front yard that isn't fenced in, it's your back, that's where it gets tricky because you're not hiding it, but people aren't actively walking it. They aren't actively seeing it. So that's where it
There's
gets
a lot of-
tricky.
it's a big space.
10 feet's a lot of space.
I mean, I'm gonna hire a surveyor.
Good luck. Here's the problem. This is happening all over San Diego. We called over a dozen surveyors. My neighbor across the street who just bought a house also called over a dozen surveyors. They don't have time. It's crazy. And the same with property lawyers. we had a hell of a time finding a property lawyer because everybody is slammed because of situations just like this.
2-year backlog.
Huh?
2-year backlog.
2 year backlog to get to people. So I'd start looking for that surveyor today.
And if you're gonna get a surveyor, the surveyor is gonna go by the point.
The
that
monuments,
the city said, and they're not right.
which I think I just pointed out, they're not right.
Measure, my lot does not. It's not the same when it says on Zillow. Bonding taxes is something that is.
You need to go to the county and you need to get that plot, like I showed, and it should give you the measurement. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Yes, so, but I'm an architect, you do a project.
Uh-huh.
On most of projects, we need to get boundary survey. And the boundary survey is actually calculation.
Yes,
And after the calculations are done, the pins are set, and then it has to be reported to the county. So,
yes,
and this is what established the legal aspect of the law.
yes.
And this is why we do that on all of them.
But the problem is, many of us who've been here for 3-4 decades never got a survey.
See, on my house, that I did on Holly, I
Uh-huh.
had a survey, I had a boundary survey,
Mhm.
and it was pretty much going on like this map before.
If you're on Holly,
Yeah.
your shift is different. I said east, southeast. So your shift is now where the street and the alley and the street are moving. So you probably, I don't doubt that you're probably really close.
There's also the aspect that when we look at Google Map or Google Earth,
Uh-huh.
the verticality of the picture is not set in relationship to the property.
Yeah.
So when we see, especially with tall buildings, you see a shift.
Yeah,
It's quite dramatic.
yes.
So
And
this
that's,
is where the boundary is.
yeah, that's why I said I didn't put much faith into the Google Maps until I talked to the lawyers. It is, in my opinion, they are exaggerated.
Mhm.
But they also show the intentional shift of the entire neighborhood.
And there's a mistake on surveys. I've got a project in La Jolla, but now it's a big mess between
Yeah.
5 lots.
I don't doubt that. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I really want to chime in with the project here, I own property on Holly. And thank you for your sharing your story and your research with us. I'm an architect and I'm trying to put ADUs in my backyard.
Mhm,
And as an architect, I know to get a survey.
mhm.
And this is the real ramification of this issue, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Is that when the original founders laid out these parcels,
Mhm.
they were laid out in a regular manner with orthogonal, mostly, boundary lines to the parcels.
Mhm.
So they were rectangular and the dimensions were to nominal numbers. 50-foot wide parcels,
Mhm.
125-foot long parcels, not 50 point blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Now, here's where it really gets problematic for the homeowner. Because I'm on a corner parcel,
Oh,
uh,
north or south?
I'm north of Adams,
I mean, is the parcel to the north of the block or the south of the block?
the north end,
Okay,
on Holly and Collier.
yeah.
And the survey indicated the markers were in the ground.
Mhm,
And so the survey was based on those markers. I
mhm.
guess they had to place one. Now I have 2 markers side by side, which doesn't make any sense. But in producing the survey, they delineated the width of my parcel to be 50.06 feet. Okay, 0.06 feet
Is
equates to
about a,
3/4 of an inch.
yes,
Okay,
yeah,
so when you look at the codes and you want to do a development, there's setback regulations based on the width of your parcel.
Mhm.
And if it's a 50-foot width parcel, you're allowed a 5-foot setback on the street side yard.
okay,
And I had a proposal for that as a solution. And when the city, DSD, recognized that the survey shows 0.06 more than 50 feet on my width, I was now obligated to provide a 10-foot setback along that street side, which killed my ADU development project, and I had to start from scratch, a whole new project. So this is a
Wow.
serious issue. I thought that the city had made some accommodations in the new land development code update for these discrepancies between what the assessor's map shows versus what these surveys are coming up with.
Mhm.
Because my argument is, in the last, what, 80 years, since the 100 years, things have shifted over time.
Yeah,
And a 3/4 inch discrepancy is nominal and should be acceptable to still succumb to a 50-foot width parcel for the setback requirements. And instead, they ate another 5 feet out of my property that I can't develop.
and was that the end of it?
That's the end of it, and then I think they have changed the land development code to accommodate the parcels to be treated as more equally, like, all of these lots are supposed to be 50-foot wide parcels. So when my survey comes up with 50.06 feet,
Mhm.
I mean, it's absurd to hold me to a different standard.
So did they give you a reason why there's two pins side by side?
No, nobody can say that. I've asked the city, why do all the markers in the neighborhood have this white circle around it? Because I noticed that about 2 years ago that happened. And I'm like, who's going around marking all these markers? And of course, I spoke to the city council representative and they never got back to me. So I have no idea.
I
who went
believe it's
through
the
And
water,
marked all the markers, but I think it had to do with
with the water.
establishing a sustainable development area.
Oh,
And the underground that, is supposed to
Yeah,
be happening.
I
for
was
the last
thinking of the
50
water
years.
replacement.
Right,
Yeah,
like that's ever gonna happen,
yeah,
right?
okay.
So. The fence thing, I also had the same problem with my property. My neighbor decided to build their fence on my side of the parcel, even though the markers are in the ground.
Uh-huh.
And
And have they measured theirs to see?
they didn't get a survey,
Oh,
but I got a survey,
okay,
and I shared my survey with the neighbors. Your fence is on my property line,
Okay.
at least 8 inches. They
yes.
don't care.
See,
They're like, sue me.
well, see, that's
And I'm not
what I was
building.
trying to say. When somebody says sue you,
I'm just
it's
gonna
pretty
move the fence.
expensive.
If it's in my way, I'm just gonna move the fence. It's on my property.
Yeah, oh,
They
we,
won't do anything for you.
no,
So I live on Eugene Place, and
Okay.
my husband did the interview with Channel 8. We've communicated on Facebook.
Oh,
We had
okay.
issues with our neighbor on the east and the west. It is 8 inches. We just had our property surveyed last week.
okay,
So what we have found out on the west side is our property line is now 8 inches into our neighbor's driveway, which renders it unusable and actually includes part of their garage. Our neighbor is now selling her property. And she has a
oh,
huge lot,
oh,
we're worried the developers can buy it. And we considered putting up a fence on the property line. But it's
Well-
$3,300.
she can't sell that without telling them there's a property
That's
dispute.
slow.
Right, and so because we've had issues with the other side, we've had like over $30,000 of legal fees.
Yep, we're up to 12 already. Yep.
And it is, yeah, huge mess.
And that's the problem, is that the developers who are coming into Normal Heights don't care. They don't care what the traditional ones, they don't care it's been 100 years. They want what they want, and to hell with you, and they're gonna bully you for it. There's somebody behind.
What are the potential doing about them? Like, can we come together as a community and pass
You wanna, sure, you wanna finish out the presentation and then step into that?
Yeah, it's that,
Yeah, let me be clear.
that,
Okay, the developer that's got the property next to us, bought that property. They told us, well, said so, you got 2 pockets, we'll run you out.
they literally put that in the email, that it would be financially hard for us, but they have unlimited resources. And then in the next paragraph, they said, but we're not bullying you.
So they're gonna sue you. They're gonna have to sue you.
Every older
You were
year.
at fault. And
If you go to Google and get down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
it is. Okay. Hold on, folks, hold on, so we're coming back.
We're gonna go ahead and continue the presentation.
Okay, so for what it's worth, DSD told us that before somebody starts selling off property, get with your neighbors, get an understanding of what the traditional line is, get pictures, write up a description. And they said that should be okay. Well, it can be, it's not legally binding, but what it does is if you do have a lawsuit, you can go, hey, this is what we were told, this is what we agreed to. It's a helpful thing. It's not gonna save you in the end. You can also legally get with a lawyer and a surveyor and recreate those adjustments with your neighbors. Pretty expensive.
Lot line adjustments.
Lot line adjustments. We got how many people living in Normal Heights? How many parcels are we talking about?
Right.
Last one is, by the way, it's an election year for city. Give them a call. Call the county reps as well. Tell them this has got to be fixed. You cannot tell me that an entire neighborhood got together and shifted all of their properties. It is very clear that this is a created problem by the people who maybe, like the gentleman said, was inadvertent, but they still created the problem. So then my ask of the community planning group is to write a letter to the city and tell them that this is a very clear 12-inch shift east, southeast. If lines were all over the place in Normal Heights, I would understand that it was a personal issue. When every single one is 12 inches shifted in the same direction, you cannot tell me that this was not a created problem. That letter requests that there is an immediate moratorium on our property line issues because 30,000, 12,000, we're getting in deep here. This is hurting. And it should ask the city to implement. Now, I asked the gentleman today to come out and look at what I was telling him because he sounded like he didn't believe me when I told him. Come out and look at what I'm saying. Look at the pins, look at the traditional lines, look at the map, and then tell me that you don't believe me. So they should come up with a plan on how to address this. This should be copied to the state agencies. Because again, the state called the city out in 1985 and continued on through 2013 that this city was doing this and they knew it. And the city admitted that they were doing it. And then further research, if the city is not going to act, I believe us as a community, we need to act. We need to cover each other. We need to do this as a group because apparently we all shifted our properties in the same manner. So we should work together to do this, and if it comes to a class action suit, I don't know what else to do, but I'm open to suggestions, and that's what my suggestion is to you, Jimmy.
I think you've made a convincing case that a lot of people are inconvenienced or possible a lot of money. I support the motion that we participate in the manner that you would a letter.
Okay, great.
Do we have a second?
Who are you gonna send it to?
So, let it Jason does a second for the motion to write the letter as requested. We have discussion.
Who are you gonna send it
To the mayor and to your boss, and then copy the state and the county agencies.
You
The
understand,
city is burning.
you understand for it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sister, so then-
Yeah, you don't have to put up, but yeah.
Okay.
there's-
To the governor for the fact that we can't put in.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said, so what year did you say that happened? The GPS where everything came from this, different GPS?
I can't get an answer from anybody on how that shift happened. But the crux, I believe GPS is only shown the issue. The real crux of it is who put those initial monuments in and who put them in 12 inches east southeast.
But the city did hire somebody to do the GPS in the lot lines, right?
No, nobody's admitting to anything.
I think typically with like lot lines, there's a EIS.
Yes,
It's called Esri.
yes.
So pretty much everybody gets all their data from Esri. And that's,
And the funny thing is, when I was talking to the gentleman today, from the city, he pulled up our lot. And he actually said out loud, well, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I spent with 15 to 16 hours at the county. At 3 different places. Stay away from Sandy. But I got so many different answers depending on who I was talking to and what time of the day it was. But the bottom line was, how we've known about this for decades. And have decided that we just still have hands off.
Your hands on. So
All for the question.
Yeah,
comes in the
yes, I'm gonna get out of here.
sorry,
The board has a motion in front of it and we can discuss all we want.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a decision and a vote.
so do we have any more, questions from the board? Okay, then let's take it to a vote. All in favor of sending a letter as described?
You.
Looks very unanimous. At this point, I would like to take a 10-minute recess.